Not my story, but one that was told to me by my friend in the early 90s. We were in the army, stationed in Mannheim, Germany. The buildings on our post were old WW2 barracks. One building was just used for storage, so it was empty most of the time. My friend, I'll call him Chris for clarity, was a driver for the command staff. That meant when he wasn't driving them around, he was open to do all kinds of BS little jobs. One day, he had to get some folding chairs from the storage building. Chris came to me just when I was going to lunch and he was all shaken up. He said the building was empty, but he kept hearing whispers in German and seeing shadows. He was genuinely scared to go back and get the chairs and asked me to go with him. I didn't because I was about to meet my, at the time, girlfriend for lunch. Chris did get the chairs, but he was adamant that the ghosts of W2 German soldiers were haunting the place. I can't say if that's true, but he wasn't a joker kind of guy and he didn't scare easily.
I worked at a haunted house that was old Victorian era. And I remember one time I was one of the last people still inside, so I had to navigate the house in almost complete darkness. The entire time I was upstairs. I kept hearing footsteps like someone was following me, so I would naturally turn around and no one was there. Except one time I turned around and saw something gaunt and emaciated looking, peeking at me from around the corner, and I took off. I got outside and looked back out of fear, but nothing was there. The scariest part was when me and my buddy were leaving. He asked me why I was taking my time upstairs and staring out the window. I'm so glad I stopped volunteering there.
I worked in a building that used to be the payroll location for a lumber business in the Pacific Northwest. One of our meeting rooms was actually a vault with a big vault door. It was an old brick building with hardwood floors and even a fireplace. The space had a subtle, creepy vibe, but nothing too major. Cool to work there. However, the security system would trip at night, and the company would have to come and investigate. They kept getting notices that the back door was being opened. There were so many times when the security company would be at the office, trying to figure out what was tripping the alarms at night. We always joked about having a sleepover in the building to see what we could witness, but of course we never did.
I work in a school that was built in the 1800s. Since I'm a regular staff member and not teaching faculty, I work in summer. Given that fact, besides a handful of custodians, there really aren't any other people in the building with me. One day I had to meet a parent at our main entrance to drop off some forms. And on my way back to my office, I was admiring what a great job our custodians had done polishing the floors. The floors were gleaming. As I was walking and marveling at the shiny floor, I saw a boy, about 6 years old, wearing sandy-colored shorts with a white short-sleeve button-down and shiny brown ankle boots running down the hall. The weird thing was that the child I saw wasn't in the hall, but reflected on the floor, kind of how you would see a reflection when looking into a pond. It was a very eerie, unexplainable experience. And since I'm really chicken, I don't admire the floors much after they've been polished anymore.
When it snows a few inches in Seattle, the city shuts down. I used to work in a doctor's office in a hospital. It wasn't the part of the hospital with patients, just labs and clinics. During a storm, I was the only one in the office and mostly sitting around answering the phone. I may have been the only person in the entire tower besides the security on the first floor. I felt someone in the waiting room all day, especially around the fish tank. I kept on checking one of the patient rooms. I don't know why I remember that day so well, but I can remember every part of the clinic that day. That was almost 20 years ago, but I can hear the sounds and feel the dread like a map. I'm sure I just creeped myself out. Fish tank noises and empty hospital probably contributed.
I was the kitchen manager of a pub in a small Ritchie Beach retirement town. Building the pub was in was old, probably late 1800s. I would get to work about 30 to 45 minutes before my opening server waitress would get there. Every day I'd open the back door, come in and lock it because I would be in the basement getting stocked from the walk-in. I would always hear the server unlock the door and hear footsteps. Then her voice at the top of the basement stairs ask if I was here. I'd yell up the stairs I was, bring up my first load of stock, and have a quick coffee and smoke with her before we continue on our days. One morning I got to work, unlocked the door, turned the lights on, locked the door and headed downstairs. I was busy getting stock and I heard footsteps above. The ceiling was not finished in the basement, just support beams and old-ass wood. So you could see dirt sometimes falling from the ceiling if someone was walking around. I yelled up the stairs, "Hey, I'll be up in a sec." I heard the footsteps stop and walk back towards the kitchen back door. I thought it was weird she didn't say anything and I didn't hear the kitchen door close. I figured maybe she didn't hear me or forgot something in her car. I made my way up the stairs into the kitchen. I peeked in the bar area and didn't see her at her purse. I went to the back door and it was locked. I was confused and unlocked the door and stepped outside. Her car wasn't there, nor was the owner. She pulled in right as I was about to head in. I laughed and asked her if she forgot something. She looked at me confused and asked what I was talking about. I explained to her what happened in the basement, hearing footsteps, etc. She got very spooked and said she had multiple strange encounters prior to me working there, because the other kitchen staff would get there later and she would be the first in. She said it stopped when I was hired and she thought she was just going crazy before. Another separate time a while after this, I heard someone call my name in the basement, very clearly and with an urgent tone. Following this, the overhead light went out and there was a very loud stomp right above my head. I went outside until the server got there.